Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Behind me, 2008 Chevy Cobalt, we're going to be replacing the head gasket. Now we just rebuilt this engine. In less than 5 minutes of it running on the initial start, we saw it leaking out of the side of the head, right where the seam, the head gasket and the block meet. So we're going to pull this head back off, replace the gasket, see where the failure was. Was it in the head? Is it in the gasket? Either way, it doesn't matter. If you have to replace your head gasket on a Cobalt or a Chevy 2.2 liter, this is how you do it. So first thing we want to do is jack the vehicle up, put it on jack stands. We want to drain the oil and the coolant. So apparently I hit time warp on my GoPro, so it kind of messed up this little section. All I've done is taken the air box off. There's a clamp on the throttle body, a little push connector, one little hose that comes off, and then undoing the air filter housing, and the whole thing should lift up and out. Then we're pulling off the serpentine belt. So jack the car up, take the tire off, and pull off that little plastic shield by the wheel well. Then with a special tool you can get from the auto parts store if you don't already own one, but it's just a slender little tool with a 3/8 ratchet end on it. We put that on our tensioner pulley, counterclockwise, and then we can pull our belt off. All right, back to the show. And while we're down here, we'll pull the crank pulley off, 21 millimeter. And it should come right out. They're not really pressed on. Should slide out like that. And then we have our belt tensioner. Has to come off right through here. It's a 15 millimeter. We want to jack up the engine just a smidge so you can get that in there to pull it off. But first we want to take our engine mount off. Our engine mount lives right here. We want to support the engine with a jack under the oil pan and a block of wood. Then we have 3 15 millimeter bolts we'll take off first. Okay. And then 2 18 millimeter bolts we'll pull off next. Or their nut, the 2 nuts. Gets this bracket out of the way. So now let's jack up the engine just a smidge. We have this other bracket we have to get off attached to the block. They're all 18 millimeter bolts. You don't need to go up too far, just a little more. The 2 bolts on top are easy to get to. That bottom bolt is a little challenging. We'll get that with an 18 mil wrench. Alright, that should just come right out with the bolt. The bolt can't come out on its own because it hits the frame, so it all comes out with the bolt. Alright, now let's go under and get our tensioner pulley off through that little keyhole. It's just an extension with a 15 millimeter socket. We'll pop that through. Now if we need to, we can raise or lower the engine to get it right on there. Pop it loose, there we go. Very carefully, we'll pull our bolt out. Having a magnet is the best. There we go. Just like that. And the tensioner's out. Might be hard to see in the camera, but there's a slot right here in the frame. We want to take some tape and cover that slot, because when we pull this cover off, oil's going to drip out. And if oil gets in that slot, it drips down the frame way back there, and then it just makes a mess. So by covering this hole with a piece of tape, then the oil won't get in the hole, it'll just drip from the top of the tape and then down this little channel here. So now pulling off the timing cover. There's a couple of bolts you get from up top. They're 10 millimeter. There's one 15 millimeter right there, but the rest are 10 millimeter. Some you get from the bottom. It's gonna be hard to film me actually doing it, but just to point those out where they are. So we got all the bolts out and you can already see that oil's starting to drip out. So just make sure you have a catch pan. That piece of tape protects. You can see it would have went right in that hole right there, and it wouldn't come out until way past your catch pan. So now we can just go ahead, pull this completely off. Let me use 2 hands. I'll set you up on the stand. Nice. All right, now we'll just let that drip. Let's go up top, start pulling off the valve cover. The valve cover is pretty easy. Pull off our ignition coils. Now these gray tabs just get pushed back and then you pinch, and it's just a regular pinch connector. Now we want to pull our bracket for the fuel hose off. 10 mil back here, 10 mil on the side. Now it's just a series of 10 millimeter bolts around the perimeter. And the valve cover should just slide right out. And there we go. That gives us access to our top chain guide, 10 millimeter. Now we do want to pull our exhaust cam sprocket off. Let's see, I believe it's a 18 millimeter. There we go. Before we pop that all the way off, I forgot a step. Let me crank the engine over. Okay, let me zoom you in a little. It's not showing up the best, but right here on the intake side, it says INT. You want that about a 45-degree angle, and that'll put this side, the exhaust, should say EXH. You want that about a 45 also, opposing each other. That's cylinder 1 at top dead center. So this is where we want our timing. 32 millimeter gets our tensioner off right here in the back. There we go. Should just screw out. There we go. Now this is more loose to just come right off. There we go. Then we'll pull our other one off as well. So let's go ahead and take our fuel rail off. Now there's a 10 millimeter bolt here holding this bracket on, 10 millimeter bolt on the side holding this fuel rail or fuel line bracket on. We'll pop this off right here. Just a little retainer bracket. Then we get this special tool set. We want the 1/2 inch. You can get this from the auto parts store. I believe you can rent them if you don't own one. We'll put this around like that. And underneath, now I like putting a rag over it and some safety goggles for when this pops off. You just push up and then this should slide right out. There we go. Collect all the fuel in a rag and we'll set the rag out to dry in a safe place. But now that's out of the way. Now let's pull off our fuel rail and our intake manifold. Pull this off right here. There's a little clip you push up or push down. That slides off. Do it to this one over here too. Slides off, there we go. Connector right here gets disconnected from the main harness. And then our map sensor right here can get disconnected. Two 10 millimeter bolts. We'll take this hose off here too. The fuel rail can come out like that. And I want to be careful, there'll be just a little fuel in here so it can spill out on you. Now the manifold is held on by 10 millimeter bolts. We also have the throttle body we can unplug. Should just come right up. Oh, there's one more bolt that holds our dipstick tube in. 10 mil. Now it should come right up. See what's in the way. Might be our dipstick tube in the way. So close. So let's pull our dipstick tube out. Oh, there we go. So by just taking the AC line off of the dipstick tube, the tube was able to move just a little more out of the way. Oh, I know what it is. It's our vacuum hose for our brake booster has to come off. It's hitting on the oil filter housing. So if you turn it over upside down, it's easier to get that clip off. I know I'm in your way and you can't see what I'm doing. But this little hose here, it has this white clip. It's hard to get it from up above because you have to pinch the bottom. So by twisting it upside down, you can get it with a pick and just push those little clips in and then push it out. All right, that should be it. Let's see. There we go. There we go. Okay, we can pull this radiator hose off. Now, if you have air injection, we have this hose we can pull off, 10 mil up front. And then I believe it's a 10 mil in the back. Nope, 13 in the back. Now that 13 in the back doesn't have to come all the way off because the hose bracket is slotted. And then we'll pinch this hose and slide it out. There we go. So that's up and off, just out of the way to get it off of the head. Okay, so now what do we have? We have this we can disconnect. Okay, I believe that's it on this side. So all this can just get tucked behind. There's a ground strap, 10 millimeter. It's got to kind of finesse and get something in there. Probably a ratcheting wrench would be better. Okay, so that's everything there, everything there. I'm gonna disconnect the connector for our cam position sensor. There we go, that's out of the way. Now the bracket for our purge solenoid, 10 millimeter. 13, what? Okay, so that's out of the way. That's out of the way. Everything is out of the way. The next thing we need to do is pull off our exhaust manifold. Now we don't need to undo the manifold. We just need to unbolt it from our exhaust pipe so we can leave the manifold on. Now I have the advantage of these being off recently, so these will come off really easy for me. If not, let me show you a video real quick how you can get these off from underneath. The exhaust is a 15 millimeter from underneath. We barely have enough room squeezing under here. I think we can get it with our impact. Having an impact is the best. It minimizes the chances of a bolt seizing on there. So this is what I had to use to get the exhaust off. Extension after extension after extension, adapter plus extension plus 15 millimeter socket. And I think right here, the fact that this extension has a wobbly is what really helped, especially for the top bolt. Why it had to be so long is because you have to go over the exhaust and all the way out in order to get your impact on it to buzz it off. But we got them all off. That's a big win. Exhaust always scares me because bolts tend to break. So I put the valve cover back on just so we didn't drop anything in, moving stuff around. So this can just slough to the back. That can do its thing there. I think we're good. Now we can start busting our head bolts loose. So pull this back off. So they are a 15 millimeter bolt, and the pattern of loosening them is from the outside to the inside. And we are leaking more coolant. Put our catch pan underneath. Okay, let's see how easy this comes off. Hopefully it's easy. Nope, I forgot we have 4 front bolts here. Just getting ahead of myself. They are an E12. So in order to get this last one here in the corner, we have to pull off that timing chain guide. So it's a 10 millimeter Allen, gets that nut off. Now if you're doing a head gasket for the first time on yours, it wouldn't hurt to go ahead and do a whole timing job. So get a timing chain kit. That would be the best. And then once the head's off, you get perfect access to the back. You can even replace the water pump while you're at it. Just kill all those birds with one big stone. Poor little birdies. So pulling this off gives you access to a 10 millimeter bolt. Use a magnet to get it out. There we go. Now we can get this tensioner out of the way. Now these 4 bolts I'm taking off are part of the head bolts, but they're not torqued the same way. They have really low torque. It's pretty much just oil sealing this part of it. Okay, that should be everything. Now let's see about lifting it up. Just the exhaust can come up. There we go. All right, here's the old gasket. And I can already tell you, I'm gonna call foul because this is MLS, multi-layer steel. Look at how many layers there are. 1, 2. This is Felpro, multi-layer steel. 1, 2, 3. That's usually how they are. 3 layers of steel, not just 2. They failed the layer. So I guess that's a lesson. Just make sure all your parts are good. So let's go ahead and clean this up real good. We're gonna vacuum out. We got coolant in our cylinder, so we'll just vacuum that out real good. Wipe off the head real good. This has already been resurfaced, scraped off. But if this is your first time doing this, you wanna get a plastic scraper, scrape off any of that old head gasket material. We're gonna blow out each hole for our bolts. Make sure that there's no liquid settling in the bottom of those. That's critical. If there is liquid still in the bottom, it'll give you a false torque because it'll create hydraulic pressure. You'll think it's tight, but it's really not. So you wanna make sure those are blown out. And then on the head, the best thing to do is take it to a machine shop, have them resurface the bottom. For blowing out the bolt holes, I have a long piece of copper pipe. If you have an air nozzle that's long enough, you could put that in. I find that this, putting it all the way down the hole, get a rag, put it over the hole, and blow it out. Now before we put our head back on, let's go ahead and pull off our chain guides. Should be just 2 10 millimeters underneath. This chain guide comes out the top. Okay, surface is nice and smooth and clean. Looks good, looks great. Putting our new gasket on, the lettering faces up, and it even says the word up here. If you had it upside down on accident, you'd notice that the portholes don't line up. So we'll put that on, make sure our gasket is also nice and grit free. Okay. Perfect, just like that. Now, as far as putting the head back on, we want to try and just put it straight on as possible. If you think it'll help you to take the exhaust manifold off, now would be a good time to take it off. It bolts back on pretty easy. You're just reaching back there to do it. I'm gonna leave mine on, but that's just a tip if you need yours off. Now is the time. Let's do this. Okay, if you need to set it down, you can. Move stuff out of the way. You just want to pick it straight back up when you do. Okay, looking good still. See anything else in the way? There we go. Straight up. There we go. Almost got it. Nice. Fit right in the dowels. Good. Just make sure everything is, no wires or anything got pinched in the head. All right, sweet. Let's get our new head bolts. So our new head bolts, we want to oil up with just regular motor oil, the threads. I just dip it in oil and then I tap it on a rag just to get the excess off. And then we can put it in. We just want to do that to all of them. So the torque sequence is 22 foot-pounds plus an additional 155 degrees. Start in the middle, go over, diagonal, diagonal, over, diagonal, diagonal, over, diagonal, over. So starting from the middle, working your way out. 22 first. All right, I'm just gonna double check that they are all done. All right, now don't be scared with the 155. That's close to 180. So we're gonna take a pin or a marker, put a tick on each bolt. We know where 90 is, we know where 180 is. We wanna be just past halfway between 90 and 180. So close to 180. Okay, they all look good. Now we'll put in our 4 bolts here, and these are 26 foot-pounds in no particular order. Little anti-seize on our exhaust bolts. Put those in. I forgot to hit record. So all I did was plug this back in. You have to route your wiring up and over it. I put on the ground strap in the back, 10 millimeter there, and then we just set in our intake manifold. We have not torqued it yet. Now getting it in, you just kind of have to finesse with this AC line just a smidge, but it fits right in. So I'll give you a torque spec on those. We'll torque them down. Okay, we could plug this in while we remember. So it just slips over and then you push that clip back down to lock it in place. Put our fuel rail on. Now your head gasket kit may come with new O-rings for your fuel injectors. You could take those off, put the new ones back on. Then we want a little dielectric grease, a little silicone paste on the O-rings so they slip in really nice. Okay, slip them in, perfect. Plug in our map, then plug in this connector down here, and our throttle body can be plugged in as well. We can plug our fuel rail in, it just snaps in, and we'll put our clip on. Plug in our cam position sensor. Then we also have our purge bracket we can bolt back up. All right, moving right along. We have a radiator hose, plug that in. Again, a little dielectric grease or silicone paste on the inside of your radiator hose helps it slip on and it protects the rubber. And we have this we can put back on. Ugh, got in my face. Still had coolant in it. All right, that goes under, plugged in there. Perfect. We have this that can go on. Snap, snap. I think it goes under here. Click, click, boom. I think that's it. Let me double check. Nope, we got this little 10 millimeter in the front, right here for our air injection, just on that bracket. Now we want to put our dipstick tube back in. Might have to go down and guide it. Now put a little lube on the O-rings to help it slide in. Okay, I'm gonna take the dipstick out. All right, going underneath is the ticket. Now if you have the air injection pump, to get better room, you may have to remove it. You don't have to pull it all the way off of the vehicle, just the 3 bolts. There's 3 13 millimeter bolts that hold it in. Pull those off and then it'll slough down just enough. You can see where the tube goes and it just makes it easier. So that's good. Okay, let's double check. Good, good, good. So now we just have to set our timing. So I have a different video with this engine that's out. Because filming won't be that great over here, I'll show you how to set the timing up, and then all you have to do is just do it on the side here. But everything is easily accessible through the wheel well and a little bit up here. But you'll see that on the other video, so I'll shoot you over that way. Once the timing's done, we throw the valve cover gasket on. I'll give you the torque for that, and then we'll fire it up. Okay, so the cam sprockets are exactly the same. It doesn't matter which one goes on which side. This is the intake side. We want that INT to be about a 45-degree angle. And then same with the EXH on this side, we want it to be about a 45-degree angle. So we want this keyway to be 90 degrees straight up. So let's put this back on and turn it just enough. Right about there. Okay, so let's put our sprockets on down here. So first we want our big gear on, and there's a front and nothing on the back. So the front goes facing out. There we go. And then this one has a dimple on it. The other side, no dimple. So we want the dimple pointing out. And those are our timing marks. Perfect. We want the unique colored link to be here on the intake side. So we'll move this around and put it right there on that tooth. Okay. So now we're gonna work clockwise. So we have this one right here where it needs to be. Now our second colored link, or our next one, needs to be on the dot on our big back gear here in the front. Okay, I'm just gonna put my finger on it like that. Now we're gonna take up this slack right here. Let's go ahead and take up that slack. Okay, perfect. Now slack is taken up. Now we'll come around. Now on the water pump, it does not matter how that lays. All right, and it actually may help to pull one of these bolts out. They had us put that on first, but it might be easier to just have it off for now. Okay, there we go. And now let's put it on this last one here. There we go. Okay, so that's what you gotta do. You gotta put it over the water pump before putting it over this one. Just double check, colored, colored, and colored. Now let's put the guide on. Drop my bolt. All right, now you should be able to pull the pin on your tensioner, and let's get some torque specs. So our top chain guide bolts are 133 inch-pounds. Everything else is 89 inch-pounds. Okay, our balance shaft timing is in. Now we'll put on our main timing. All right, so again, we have 3 links, 2 the same color, 1 unique. The unique goes on the intake timing mark. So you want to put the timing chain through the top. You want to make sure the timing chain goes on both sides of the block boss. You'll see it in there. It's like a, I don't know how to describe it, but it's a little blockage here. You want it to go on both sides of that. There we go. This takes a little finesse. Okay, this will go around the crank bolt. So the colored link, I don't know where I put it. Okay, the unique one here. So now we'll put our intake cam on, or the cam sprocket on, so it lines up. That'll go on like that. Perfect. Now we'll just finger tighten this. Okay, we'll leave that for now. Now we'll put our long chain guide through the top. The bolt hole goes down. Right through the top like that, and it gets bolted right there. All right, again, we'll do all the torquing last. All right, so now we'll get our other cam on. So we want to make sure this link also lines up with that mark. So what we might have to do actually is just tighten up the crank a little, turn it clockwise to get that slack out of the chain. There we go. So now we'll go up with this side. Make sure that lines up still. So we'll get our exhaust. The EXH goes on that other color. Perfect. Now we might have to move the exhaust cam just a little. So let me grab something to do that with. So we're just gonna move this till it lines up. There we go, perfect. Now we'll put our bolt in there. And then last, we want to put this on here. It goes up through there, and then right in here. May help to have a magnet if you need. Our guide bolts are 89 inch-pounds. We got 3 of those. So this cap bolt, we want to put just a little RTV on the threads. All right, now this is a whopping 59 foot-pounds. We don't want to forget our upper guide. Those also are 89 inch-pounds. So before we can torque these, we have to put our tensioner in. Let's get a torque on that. That is 55 foot-pounds with a 32 millimeter socket. All right, now these are 63 foot-pounds plus 30 degrees. Make sure our timing marks are still in the right spot. Good. Now 30 degrees. So you got our 90 would be here, 45 would be here, so just a little less than 45 will be 30. Our timing is set and done. We're ready for our timing cover and our valve cover to go back on. Let's take a quick water break, and when we come back, we'll start doing this. So now what we want to do is get our front seal out. Now you can get a screwdriver from this back side and pop it out from this direction, out this way. Or, let me see if I got it here. Found it. You can take a big screwdriver from this end and just pop that seal off, just like that. Now we want to take our new seal. We're going to throw just a little bit of lubricant on the outside of it. Doesn't take a lot, just to help it go in. I'm just going to tap that in. You could probably even just press it in with your fingers. These usually aren't in very tight. Just press it in until it bottoms out. Yeah, see, my fingers is all it needed. I'm going to throw a little lubricant on the inside here as well for when it slips over that crankshaft. All right, front cover is good to go on. Let me pull you around to the block, and there's a place we need to put our TV. So we're going to take our scraper and scrape right here where the 2 case halves come together. We just want to get that nice and clean the best we can. Plastic scraper is the best for this. Getting it from different angles is helpful. Now it doesn't have to come all the way off, just get the bulk of it. Take some brake clean with a rag, clean that off. And we can actually just clean the whole surface off. So we get a nice clean mating surface. We're gonna throw a dab right here where the case halves come together. Nice good dime size, maybe a little smaller than a dime, just right there. When the gasket goes on, that'll squish out. All right, our gasket should only go on one way. There's dowels on the sides that'll help it stay in place. Just like that. Want to make sure this surface is nice and clean, and then it's ready to go on. And there we go. The dowels also line up perfectly. We start putting our bolts in. This long bolt here is for our water pump. So just like all the RTV, we want to suck it all down until it starts to squish out. Follow directions on your RTV bottle, and then we'll torque these down. Our belt tensioner is 33 foot-pounds. I'm going to leave the crank pulley off just to give us that little extra room while putting the engine back in. So that buttons up our front. Now that you have the cover on and torqued, we can put this back. Having a magnet is the best for this bolt. So we'll go ahead, slip it in. Put the bolt through, perfect. Almost lost my socket. And we lost it. No worries, if that happens to you, don't panic. I used to panic. So having a magnet like this with a flex, hopefully it's strong enough to get my socket. There we go. There, nice, nice. Just twist a little. Come on. Almost got it. Grab it again. Got it. Woo! Put our crank pulley back on. And then you just want to wipe around, make sure it's nice and clean. Maybe put a little oil or grease around that so it slips in over the seal. Perfect. It should just slide on one way and you'll feel it bottom out. Put our bolt on. I'll give you a torque for that. That is 74 foot-pounds plus 125 degrees. We'll put our belt back on and we're done from down here. Once you got your timing set, we can put the valve cover on. New valve cover gasket. Just kind of slips right in. You just want to watch your gasket, make sure it doesn't snag on anything on its way in. Watch your wiring. There we go, up and over. Perfect. Now this is a blue gasket, so you can just look around and make sure it's still in its channel. Looks good. Now we can tighten her down. I'll give you the torque specs for that. And we just have the 2 brackets for our fuel line. Let's see, that goes up and over, that goes over. Now our ignition coils, new spark plugs if you want them. Now's a good time. Now we can put our intake ducting back on. Let's see, that's for the mass airflow. So now we want to fill up the coolant. There's really no bleed procedure. This is a degas bottle. It's piped directly into the thermostat housing, so it kind of burps itself. We want to fill it up, let it burp. It'll go back down, fill it back up, let it burp. It'll go back down, fill it back up until it's done burping. Then we'll warm it up to operating temperature, rev the RPMs a few times just to get that water pump cycling real hard. Then we'll let it cool down, take the cap off, and top off as needed. We'll also want to change the oil as well, get a nice fresh oil change, and then we'll start it up. All right, we're gonna start it up, moment of truth. Nice, there's a little smoking. Some of that will be from the coolant that got on the exhaust when we pulled the head off. Some of that will be from the anti-seize that we put on our exhaust bolts. No big deal. I'm gonna pull this out of the garage and just let it warm up. You could take a hose and just rinse it off real good, let it dry, and that'll also help you identify any leaks if there are any. But that's it with this repair. All right, there you go. That's how you can replace a head gasket on a Chevy Cobalt. This is the 2.2 liter Ecotec, the more common engine that's in these. This is the PZEV, the partial zero emissions vehicle, something like that. But that really shouldn't matter. The only thing that's really different maybe than one that's not a PZEV is that this has the air injection. Other than that, everything is exactly the same, torque specs and all. All right, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, see you on the next one.